Hi, my name is Bethany Maldonado, and I will be reading a piece of flash fiction that I wrote called It's Not You, It's Me. Trevor sat at the coffee shop, catching up with his friend Jamie. "How are things at Ziomata?" Jamie asked. "She's okay," Trevor replied. He took a sip of his coffee and winced because there was no cream or sugar in it. "Trev, are things not okay between you guys?" Jamie asked, knowing that something didn't seem right. "Well, I'm not sure. I gave her a key to my place, but I feel like we've been together for a long time, yet neither of us have been driving the relationship forward. It's like we just stopped moving all of a sudden. Seems like everything is out of place. I mean, don't you usually move in and whatnot after you've confessed your love for each other?" he explained. "Oh, I see," Jamie said. "What should I do?" Trevor asked. Jamie thought for a long moment. "If you want the truth from me, then I think that maybe you guys should break up. You don't want to end up wasting each other's time, do you, Trevor?" He was shocked. "Wow, really? Just break up with her?" Trevor sat in silence, thinking of the many months they had spent together. He thought of every date they went on and every movie they saw together. They had spent a lot of time together. It was hard for him to imagine a time without her. He took another sip of the black coffee, forgetting that it was bad. "I don't know. We've been together for a couple of months, but lately I have been feeling like our relationship is going nowhere." Trevor's phone chimed and a text popped up from Ziomata. It said she had a surprise for him. He looked at the phone and then left Jamie at the shop. He had a lot on his mind. The whole drive back to his flat, he thought about his conversation with Jamie. Instead of driving on the main road, he took every back road he could find to give himself more time to think. Trevor thought, "Do I really want to break up with Zoe? She's great. I can't imagine my life without her, but I think we have a better relationship as friends than as boyfriend and girlfriend." He thought long and hard, and his brain began to hurt. When he finally arrived in the driveway, he made up his mind. He had to break up with Zoe. "It's not her, it's me," he thought. "Zoe, I'm home," he said as he opened the door. He put his keys down. No one answered. He closed the door and followed the smell of burning food through the house and into the kitchen. He could hear music playing loudly from a speaker. Walking through the door, he saw Ziomata dancing in front of the stove. She was making what looked like quesadillas. She looked up and smiled. "Surprise, puppy! I'm making lunch," Ziomata said, pointing at the food burning on the griddle. She was never good at cooking. Even simple dishes like quesadillas she always burned. Trevor walked over to the griddle and turned it off. "No, you're gonna start a fire," he chuckled. He turned to Ziomata and pecked her on the lips, tasting her vanilla chapstick. He walked to the refrigerator and grabbed some things to make a sandwich. Standing there, he looked into the chilly refrigerator, remembering the cold decision he made only moments before in the driveway. He turned around and decided to tell her. "Zoe, we need to he began. "It's our song," Ziomata blurted out. "It's our anniversary. We have to dance," she said. She shoved the food aside and pulled Trevor closer to her. "Just the Two of Us" by Bill Withers played into the speaker. Ziomata mouthed the words, swaying to the music. She looked into Trevor's eyes and draped her arms around his neck. Trevor felt instant guilt. He forgot that today marked 1 year that they had been dating. "I can't break up with her today," he thought. "Just the two of us," she sang along, swaying her head. Zoe smiled at Trevor, and he smiled back, thinking, "Or maybe I could." He leaned into her as she closed her eyes and put her head in the crook of his neck. They moved back and forth, sweeping the floor. The kitchen was their ballroom. This room was supposed to be a symbol of their love for each other. They were here together because they were both old souls in young bodies. When the song finished, they stood there, arm in arm, for a few moments more. Ziomata spoke. I love you. She looked into Trevor's deep brown eyes. Trevor's face turned red as he blushed. He didn't know what to do. He panicked. I love you too? He uttered. Ugh, he thought. What now? Xiomara bit her lip, fighting the urge to pin him up against the wall for a makeout session. Instead, she gave him a long, passionate kiss. This was the first time they had ever said I love you to each other. For Zoe, it felt really good to get it out there, but Trevor couldn't help but feel like he made a big mistake. Now I will be answering a couple of questions about this piece. The first question is, where did I get my inspiration from? This particular piece came from a writing prompt that I had for a class, and it was something like write a story about bad timing. And this story came from that class, although I will be explaining a little bit later that this isn't the original story that I wrote. The next question is, how did this piece evolve from different versions? And like I was saying in the first one, from the first question, this piece actually was a writing prompt, and the writing prompt version of this story was pretty bad. It took a lot of rewriting and adding more details, and it took a lot of meeting up with friends to talk about it and to really look at it, to really begin to pick out pieces that I liked from the story, from the original story, to create what I have now. Yes. And the next question is, how many drafts did you write before the final? And as I was saying before, it took many trials and meeting up with friends and rereading and picking out pieces, and many long nights of being like, I don't really like this. And yeah, anyway, what I read here is probably like the 7th or 8th draft, just because in flash fiction pieces, you want to make sure that you keep it short, and you also want to make sure that you have a story to tell. So in order to do both of those effectively within like a limit of 1,000 words, it's really hard to get that story to evolve. Yeah, and sometimes your story evolves too much, so you have to pick and choose what you want to take out. And that's the problem I had. It was too big, too much, and I had to pick and choose what needed to come out and what needed to change and how it should end based on those changes. Let's see. The other question was, in your personal opinion, what would you, as an audience member, take away from this piece? So basically, for this piece, I just wrote it to write it. So there really was no initial objective to the piece. But now that it's written and it's been read and all of that, I think as an audience member, they should hear stories like these and maybe take away the fact that sometimes people say things they don't mean. You know, Trevor said, I love you to his girlfriend, Xiomara, and he really was in his head thinking, how am I going to break up with her now? You know, he just said it to say it. He didn't actually mean it. And so that's a real life lesson people should take away from it if you want to. If you don't want to, just take it as a cute story or whatever. That's all today, and I hope you have a good day, and thank you for listening in. Bye.